When I first found out about Laura's affair, I didn't know how to process it. The news hit me like a ton of bricks, and I spent days in a haze, unsure of what to do next. The betrayal was overwhelming. It felt like everything I knew about our marriage had been shattered. To make matters worse, it came right before a romantic trip we'd been planning for months, a trip that was supposed to be the highlight of our year. Instead, it became the moment I would confront the truth about Laura and the man she had been seeing, Larry. It all started when an old friend of mine, who worked in Laura's office, reached out. He sent me a message that didn't make much sense at first, but it turned out to be the lifeline I didn't know I needed. He told me about the long hours Laura was spending with Larry, her boss, and the rumors that had been circulating about their relationship. It was a punch to the gut, but it was also the confirmation I needed. I couldn't ignore it anymore. In those first few hours, I was paralyzed. I didn't know how to confront her. I was angry, hurt, and confused, all at the same time. My head was spinning. But I had to do something. I didn't want to show her how much this was tearing me apart, so I tried to keep up the appearance of a normal husband, while internally, I was falling apart. Every time I saw her, it felt like a mask was slowly slipping off, and all I wanted to do was scream. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to act. The waiting was unbearable, but it gave me time to think. At that moment, I thought about what I wanted. What did I want from her? Was it justice? Revenge? Or was I just trying to survive the pain? It was hard to tell. But I was about to make a choice that would change everything. And it would hurt, but it was the only way I knew how to deal with the betrayal. I couldn't just sit back and let this betrayal slide. At the time, I didn't want to simply confront Laura and talk about it. That felt too passive, too forgiving. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she had done to me. I needed her to understand the depth of my pain. That's when a plan started forming in my mind, a plan that would give me a sense of control in a situation where I felt completely powerless. The day we were supposed to leave for our romantic getaway, I made my move. I let her go ahead and board the plane, thinking everything was normal. She had no idea what I was about to do. I insisted on carrying both our bags, her personal items, money, and everything she would need. To her, it probably just seemed like a thoughtful husband, being helpful. But underneath, I was planning something different. As we reached the airport, I let her board the plane, telling her I needed to make a quick phone call to my mom about our cats. She didn't question it. I watched her walk away, knowing she was about to fly off to paradise without me. I stood there, an intense rush of adrenaline coursing through me. It was as if I finally had some control in a situation where I had been left powerless for so long. I went to the counter, told them I had missed my flight, and arranged to be on the next one. It felt like I was in some twisted drama, but it was the only way I could make her see what I was going through. She was now on a plane, flying to our destination, while I was staying behind, preparing to pack up my life. Back home, I began sorting through our things. I didn't know how long I could keep up the facade, but I wanted her to feel anxious, to feel the uncertainty I had felt when I first discovered the truth. She called me as soon as she landed, frantic and confused, asking where I was. I played it cool, telling her I'd be on the next flight, and I told her to relax, that there was nothing to worry about. But as the hours dragged on, she called again, becoming more anxious. I fed her lies about flight delays. By the time evening came, she was stuck alone in a hotel room, hungry, bored, and increasingly distressed. I told her I'd wire her money for food, and that she should enjoy a nice meal and walk on the beach. I kept up the pretense, telling her I'd arrive sometime during the night. Of course, I had no intention of joining her. The next day, she called again. I answered, gave more excuses, and wired small amounts of money for food, but nothing more. As the day wore on, I stopped responding. I could feel her panic mounting. By the afternoon, I had packed everything up, moved my belongings, and stopped taking her calls altogether. The storm that followed was beyond anything I expected. Her family got involved. The police showed up, trying to track me down. I didn't answer the door. I didn't want anyone to stop me from going through with this. It was sick, I knew, but I couldn't stop myself. I needed her to feel what I was feeling. I wanted her to experience that isolation, that anxiety, that confusion. I knew this wasn't the best way to handle things. My dad had warned me against taking things too far. He told me to confront her directly. But I couldn't do that. I wanted her to suffer first. As I watched everything unfold, I started to question whether I was doing the right thing, but by then, it was too late. I had crossed a line. Eventually, my dad suggested I call the police to explain the situation and end the search. I hesitated, but I did it. The officer on the phone was more amused than anything else, but he assured me he had to confirm my safety. That moment, when I packed up my life into my car and drove away, marked the beginning of the end. I knew things would never be the same after that. When I left the house that day, I felt both liberated and hollow. The decision was made, and there was no going back. I had put my plan into motion, and now I was watching everything unfold, waiting to see if the punishment I had chosen for Laura would give me the relief I so desperately craved. As I packed my car, the reality of what I had done began to settle in, but there was no turning back now. The next person to show up was Laura's sister. She arrived at the house, looking confused and shocked when she saw that all my things were packed and the house was eerily quiet. She had no idea what was going on, so I had to break the news to her. As I told her about Laura's affair with Larry, her anger was immediate. She was furious with me for what I had done, leaving Laura alone on her trip. But she could also see the pain I was in. She understood that something deep had broken in me. I told her to wait for a moment. I needed to call Laura and confront her. I wasn't sure how it would go, but I knew it was time to stop hiding from the truth. As I dialed Laura's number, I felt my heart racing. This would be the hardest thing I'd ever done. I had rehearsed what I wanted to say in my head over and over, but now that I was about to speak, all of it felt too real. The moment Laura picked up, I wasted no time. I told her I knew everything. I told her about the affair with Larry, about how I couldn't stand being married to someone who had betrayed me in such a profound way. I told her I was filing for divorce, and that I never wanted to see her again. I ended the call abruptly, not giving her a chance to respond, and shut off my phone. I didn't want to hear her side of the story. I had no interest in hearing her excuses. Laura's sister, still standing in the background, looked at me with tears in her eyes. She apologized for her sister's actions and offered me a hug, but there was nothing to say. I was done. It was over. Laura was left in tears and confusion, but I had already made up my mind. I wouldn't answer her calls. I wouldn't talk to her anymore. She had made her choice, and now she had to live with it. But the story didn't end there. I found out that Larry, the man Laura had been seeing, was also married. The rage that had been building inside me had no place to go, so I decided to take matters into my own hands. I reached out to his wife and told her about the affair. The fallout from that phone call was massive. It led to Larry's divorce and the loss of his job. The consequences of his actions hit him hard, just like they had hit me. But I didn't stop there. Laura, too, paid the price. Not long after, she lost her job. It seemed like everything in her life was crumbling. I wasn't satisfied by the damage I had caused. I wasn't doing this for revenge anymore. But there was something oddly satisfying about seeing her face the same consequences of her actions. It was like the universe had a way of balancing things out. The next twist came in the form of a phone call. A man named Anan reached out to me, someone who had heard about my situation. He had been through a similar betrayal in his own life, and he wanted to meet. We sat down for coffee and shared our stories. It was an unexpected connection, but it felt comforting. For the first time since everything had fallen apart, I felt like I wasn't alone. Over time, our bond grew stronger. What started as shared pain slowly turned into something deeper. Our friendship evolved into something more. In a way, it felt like I had found something beautiful from the wreckage of my past. Anan and I grew close, supporting each other as we both navigated the aftermath of our divorces. What had seemed impossible at the time, finding love again, was now a reality. I had no idea that in the midst of the chaos, I would meet someone who would become so important to me. With Anan, I found a connection that was unexpected but so real. And when we decided to take a trip together, it was during that vacation that we both realized we were in love. We had both been through heartbreak, but together, we had found something worth holding on to. Looking back now, I can't say I regret the decisions I made in those early days after Laura's betrayal. Yes, it was messy. Yes, it was extreme. But it was also the only way I knew how to cope with the overwhelming sense of betrayal I felt. My actions might have been hurtful, but they were born out of a need for justice, for her to truly understand the weight of what she'd done to me. Maybe that wasn't the healthiest way to approach it, but it was how I processed my pain. In the end, Laura and Larry faced the consequences of their actions, each in their own way. Laura's life unraveled, her job, her marriage, everything she had built, while Larry also paid the price for his part in the affair. I don't know how things are for them now, nor do I care. They made their choices, and now they live with them. I've moved on. I've had to. Anan and I, on the other hand, found something we never expected, a chance at happiness, a second chance at love. It wasn't something we were looking for, but we were both willing to open up again, to trust each other and see where it went. Our relationship is built on understanding, shared experiences, and the strength we found through our mutual pain. We still carry the scars of our pasts, but we've built something new and real together. We've been married now for some time, and I can honestly say that I'm happier than I ever thought I'd be again. Life has a funny way of working out, doesn't it? The path we take is rarely straight, and sometimes we have to go through the toughest times to reach the best places. As for Laura, I hear bits and pieces about her struggles, but I've stopped caring about what happens to her. She made her choice when she decided that a brief affair with Larry was worth sacrificing everything we had. Life moved on for me, and now I have someone who values me for who I am, not for what I can provide. Looking back, I don't know if I would do anything differently. The journey was painful, and it pushed me to the edge, but it also helped me become the person I am today. I've learned a lot about myself, about love, about pain, and most importantly, about forgiveness, not for Laura, but for myself. Now, Anan and I continue to build our life together. We've learned that life is unpredictable, and sometimes, even when it feels like everything is falling apart, there's a chance to rebuild. We've taken everything we've been through and turned it into something meaningful. We're not perfect, but we're happy, and that's enough. If you've made it this far, please consider subscribing to the channel. It would mean a lot and really help support what we're doing here.